the Jewish newspaper.
Yes.
And just today I left it open in my room. I have to show my daughter. It's written about this story that I will tell you immediately.
Okay.
Ah,
That's wonderful.
That's fine.
look, we were special in Bergen, Belsen because we had papers to go to be exchanged to Palestine, and the British should give the German soldiers, prisoners in war, back to the Germans, and a group of Jewish people. But we had something else, and I never knew because I was a girl. We got passports.
Somebody's coming in.
Another grandchild. Happy. Shalom. Wo kann ich? We also got a passport from Paraguay.
Wow.
And I never knew what is, and just today in this Jewish newspaper is also written about it. And about in October, I got a phone call. Yeah, you had a Paraguay passport and blah, 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 blah. I thought, who wants something from me after 70 years?
Yeah.
Close the phone.
Yes.
My sister, the same.
Yes.
Then I got a letter, and there was written, we also pay the journey to Switzerland and 3 nights. My daughter hears Switzerland and she's out of her mind. So what happened? She phoned to Warsaw, there was an address, and what happened was there was a consulate in Switzerland, and now there was no Poland anymore, but you just said.
Yeah.
And so they had nothing to do, and there was a good man. But in the newspaper it was a Jewish rabbi, today what I got. But they told him there was a Mr. Rokowski or something, and he had nothing to do, and he thought he has to help Jewish people. He took another man from the consulate and 2 Jewish men, and they could buy empty passports from all kind of South American countries. And then they sold them because it cost a lot of money to fix them. And they saved not as many as Shugihara, but also 800 people.
So 800
And now the
Neshamas.
Bibi said the Polish were also very bad or something.
Yes.
So they started to think, what did we do good? And they found Mr. Wonkowski. And he really
He was Polish.
then, he was working at the consulate, but now there was not need anymore in a consulate.
Wow.
And this poor man didn't get back to Poland, and he died without money in 54 or something.
He wasn't recognized.
No.
Ma?
He was never recognized.
No.
No, they didn't
And
recognize him.
he has a grave in Lucerne, but no tomb, no stone.
Yeah, no stone, yeah.
And now they invited everybody that had such a passport or his children.
All the descendants.
So my daughter with her husband and 2 kids, they went there. There were 800 people.
That's amazing.
And they paid the hotel, they paid the sleeping, and she was there 3 nights, and it was a very nice ceremony, and so on and so on. And the funny thing is, now it's written in Switzerland in this Jewish newspaper. But in meantime, it was something else, somewhere else written, and there was again another name. So I shouted my daughter, so now I had to show her tomorrow this one. So now they start to think about it.
So there's someone else now who was also, you said there's another name?
No, yeah, again another. Here it was a Jew with the name Eisen,
Yes.
and there it was another name from a
I
Jew.
see.
And my daughter in Lucerne, when she was there, didn't hear these other names.
That's
Funny.
amazing.
But it cost a lot of money, and my uncle that lived in Geneva, he bought these passports for my grandparents, for my father, my sister and me.
That is incredible.
Yeah, and I never knew how and what and where they
See-
come from.
And of course you never used those passports.
They were not real passports.
Yes, you're right, they
yeah.
were fake.
I know where was the other thing. I have a book here in the middle for my children. That was a family that was with me in the camp, and the man also only wrote the book much later, and he wrote about, they also had a passport from Paraguay, and he writes again another name.
It's like all pieces
I
of the
it was
puzzle
just
come together.
everything now.
That's amazing.
But Kanda, I think that's why when you were in Bergen-Belsen, you were in a separate place in the camp.
What?
When you were in Bergen-Belsen, because of the passport, I think they put you in a separate...
Yeah,
in a-
it was hell, but
Oh,
it
it
was
did help.
better than Auschwitz.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
We could be together.
Yes.
The men were next to us, and I could
Yes.
see my father at night.
Oh, I see.
And they didn't take our jewelry if we had one. They didn't take our clothes.
Wow.
But food, there was no food. There was hard work, and so on and so on. There was one exchange to Palestine here,
Yes.
and my grandfather died in the camp in Holland. My grandmother was at the list. They only took old people not to annoy the Arabs here, that they could send a soldier. My father was 56 and very sick. So a good soldier he wouldn't have been, but we were not at the list.
Yeah.
And she went to the man of the SS and she said to him, I have two granddaughters. Their father, she was the mother of my mother.
Yes.
Their father is very sick, so I cannot go. And she saved somebody, I don't know who, and she stayed with us. And she died 3 weeks before the liberation.
Oh, that is so sad.
Yeah, no, that was very nice of her, but
That
she
is
couldn't help
amazing.
us and we couldn't help her, but it was
What an
very, very
amazing
nice
woman.
of her
What an amazing.
to stay, yes.
And
So we had two things, and I cannot say what saved us, or this, because one day before my father died, there was rumors there should be another transport to Palestine. And there even came a German doctor, and I'm sure he could see that man is not coming even to the train, he will die, he died at night. And I looked at him, please, I just was there visiting in this hospital, and he said, okay, you can go. And then the nice thing is that they put my father in his clothes, not like Signal.
Yeah.
So I hope when he died that he had the hope that my sister and me can go out. But there was no exchange. There was bombing the whole time. It was February already, 45. There was, it wasn't going. Otherwise we were,
So you
even if we would have come in February, it would have been very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened after that? How did you get to Palestine eventually?
That's a long story. No, but then first my father died in February, my grandmother in March, and in April we were sent from Bergen-Belsen. There were 3 trains. We were on train number 3, the so-named Lost train. We were sent, the first train was liberated after 5 days by the Americans. But we went to the east, and we were liberated after 10 days by the Russians. And that was a big, big, big difference. And these 10 days in the train, awful, awful, awful. And then we had to live in a German village near where the train stopped for 2 months. And we had to find, it was also a whole story, we had to find an empty house. And in this house, it's also a funny story, it was the house of the mayor, because there were 2 villages, there were more, but in the first village, when I arrived with my sister, it was already full with Jewish people, and I couldn't move, not Germans and not nobody. And we went, some 8 people went back to the train. And the Russians told us, you go in the next village. And we almost couldn't walk. And the first village, they didn't hoist white flags, and the Russians told the Jewish people, you may live with the Germans or you throw them out. But in this village where we came, no, they hoisted white flags. You have to find an empty house. And we were 8 or 10, I don't remember, and we found an empty house. But the funny thing was, the house was, I said, from the mayor of this little place, and he fled. And so the house was empty, but he really would have wanted to kill us. He was a real Nazi. Why do I say this? Because the wall had light green wallpaper with dark green swastikas.
Wow.
Look, I don't have a Magenta Widner here in the neighborhood. But this man, that's, how do you say, more than necessary. Yeah?
Right, right.
And but why did he save us? The first village, these were all farmers. And the Jewish people found in the cellar, we had 10 days almost nothing to eat. They found butter and cream and cheese, and they fell over the food, and a lot had typhus already inside, but a lot died from diarrhea, from the eating.
Overeating.
At Yom Kippur you are not to eat after one day once at night. And we found the house of the mayor. He was no farmer, and we only found potatoes. And there was gas. And there you are not dying from.
Yes.
So that was our luck.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. It's amazing to look at it that way, but it's true.
Yeah, but it was like that.
My goodness.
And then the Russians looked after us, so we could get food in a little shop. What did we get? Bread, butter, milk, margarine maybe, no butter, and sausages. But that was it. And the vitamins, we took the green stuff from the garden. And so we left for 2 months, and then the Americans were allowed to take us out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Gosh, what a story. And then from there...
And then, then I had to be in a hospital. My sister was okay. And then Mr. Frank took care of us.
Otto Frank,
He was already in Amsterdam, but I had to stay at the border where we arrived in a hospital, and he came to visit me. He went every day to the central station. They would publish who came back. It was not so many people. And he looked still, when I arrived, he not yet knew that his daughters are dead, so he every day went there. Then he heard they are dead, but he heard that we arrived. And then he went to see my sister. She was with other orphans in a little home. And then he came to see me. It took him 8 hours. Today it is 1 hour and a half, 2 hours. There was nothing working in Holland. No bridges, nothing. And then he looked to it that I could come also to Amsterdam in a Jewish hospital. And I knew the address of my uncle in Switzerland, but then there was no door, nothing worked. And the moment he could get in connection, he connected my uncle, you say?
Yes, got in touch.
And 5th of December, he put my sister and me in a plane to Switzerland.
You know, Hannah, it must have been very emotional for you to have met him, to have seen him again. When you saw Otto Frank, it must have been very emotional.
Then he knew already that he has no daughters. That was very sad.
You must have told him that you were one of the last people to speak to Anne.
Yeah, exactly.
How did he react when you told him? Do you remember? It must have been very hard for him.
Yeah, sure.
But he must have been you gave her her last food.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you gave her the last... Wow.
Yeah.
How old was your sister at the time?
She is 12 years younger than me.
Yes.
So your husband knows her.
This you saw as well
Yes, I
in
did.
Beit
I
Ariel.
remember
She
it's
spoke in our
You
shul.
were not in that
I did.
synagogue
She
then?
was.
So you saw her.
Yeah,
I
of
didn't
course.
realize this whole connection. That's
Very
And then we
funny,
told-
really
It's
funny.
incredible.
Today you saw him?
Sure. I see him every Shabbos. Yeah.
Incredible.
And it's amazing. It really is. Wow. Your story is just so
How old were you at the time?
After the liberation, almost 18.
Oh, you were so young.
No, less. My sister was 4.5, so I was 12 years older.
And you always wanted to come to Israel to fulfill your parents'...
I had an aunt, she was in England.
Yes.
And 46, her husband should be professor in Brandeis University in America.
Ah, okay.
And she came through Switzerland to America to take us with her.
To America.
Yeah, and then I told her, no, my dear, my parents would have wanted us to go to Palestine, no Israel then.
Yes.
And she cried and went alone. And we had a very good connection with her son in Boston. But that was it. And I had to wait another time because now the English didn't let us come in.
That's right.
And my uncle didn't let me go on Aliyah Beit. If you wait, I will get a certificate. And I came half a year before the independence war.
That's incredible.
How do you say? From the rain into the...
Yes.
From the stove into the fire.
From the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah, something like that.
Goodness. I mean, at the most
Okay,
volatile time in our history. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I wanted to... Maybe I'm stupid, yeah, to go some years to America and then come here.
Kind of what you've achieved is...
It was destined. Amazing that you were so
Yeah,
certain about going
I don't
Palestine.
know why I did this, but okay.
That's incredible. And your parents had said to you that they want you to...
And I was in youth organization, Bachat, Brit Chalutzim Datim.
Okay.
Yeah, my father always wanted to come here. My mother was a little bit afraid. Then the women worked here very, very hard.
Yeah.
She was a teacher, and she was small and so, and she thought she cannot be like that.
Yeah, survive.
And so they always waited, and then it was too late.
Absolutely.
Hannah, I read something so amazing that in your book you mentioned that that the Franks would come to your home for Shabbat.
Yeah, very often, Friday night.
And I think in the camps, Otto Frank, he remembered saying...
He made the Kiddush.
The Kiddush.
After the war, he told me, the first Shabbat after the liberation, somebody had to make a Kiddush, but nobody knew. And they had no Siddurim or something. But he heard it so often in our home that he made Kiddush by head.
That's incredible.
That was very exciting to hear.
You came from a religious home.
Really?
Yeah, my father not. He was about Tshuva.
Your mother was...
But no, she came from Mesorati,
Right.
kosher, Mesorati,
Right.
but not religious. But Mr. Frank didn't know reading Hebrew, nothing.
But he
But
remembered...
he made the Kiddush. Look, I don't know how he made it, yes, but very nice. Yeah, but I couldn't tell my father anymore.
That was the influence of your family.
Yeah, sure,
Incredible.
but okay.
And all the years you kept a kesher with, you kept a connection with Otto Frank?
Yeah, he was Otto, Uncle
Yeah,
Otto.
Uncle
yeah.
Otto.
My kids knew him. He came very often with his second wife to visit. And they were crazy with him. He was a very nice man, and mainly with children. He was very, very nice. Yeah.
And Hannah, lastly, I just want to ask, because it was very hard to read this. I think the reason why they didn't ask your family to join them in the hiding is because your mother was pregnant. She was pregnant, so they couldn't. Yeah.
Maybe also with the kosher food or so, but I don't know.
But she was pregnant.
But she was very... Mrs. Frank later, they didn't go on so good with the other family. No. That is conditions you
was
are
difficult, very
always
difficult.
not going well.
Nothing can go smoothly under those circumstances.
Two families and this
Tension between them.
the whole
It's
time,
not
and
easy.
so
Living in a small area.
yeah.
Terrible. Yeah.
Hannah, can I ask you, could you, if you had to give a message what message would you give? I know it's a hard question, but what message could one...
I really said we have to know that we are all created by God, and if we have another color or another religion, we should try to live in peace. It is funny if we say it and here we have no peace and nothing. But that's what I would say.
It's wonderful. It's beautiful.
What are you voting?
Hannah, thank you so much.
He doesn't give an answer.
Liz